It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to hear about unique Japanese culture over and over and over again. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
I'm Mark Bailey. We're here with Stevie Howard and Mike Miller. This is Talk Funny.
Mark was bashing millennials, and I was standing up for millennials. But we had a disagreement about what millennials actually meant.
And let's take a roll call. How many millennials you put in college? Like that would be zero.
None that I'm aware of.
And for me, how many? Two. For me, two. Okay. How many biracial kids have you raised, Mike?
None whatsoever.
Okay, for me, two.
I'm in the process.
Mike,
you said me too.
Steve,
you need a hashtag.
Steve,
I think you need a hashtag.
I'm in the process of raising a Gen Z, I guess is what he is officially, right?
Yeah, legalize hashtag hash for me.
Yeah, why are hashtags okay, but hash is so wrong? I don't get that.
Why not asterisk?
What's up with that? Yeah.
Why not asterisk, piece of asterisk?
I loved asterisk and obelisk. I love their comedy duo.
So we were talking about in a previous podcast and then off mic about how if you were totally PC SJW, you couldn't tell a story. So Steve is very SJW conscious, and don't want to offend him. So Steve,
SJW, Bigfoot conscious.
Bigfoot. So don't call them big. Call them medium-sized feet.
So Steve, I don't want to offend you, so I'm just going to tell you this really funny story. So there was this person. I won't tell you the color or the gender. Who am I to assume gender or race?
Yeah, right. You can't
social construct.
And this person had big body parts, two of them. But who am I to assign number?
Yeah.
Could have been 8. Could have been, there's 57, 97 gender.
Unfair.
So this person had an unnamed number of body parts that were huge. And then this person was holding a smaller person, but the smaller person had a much larger lower region member body part than you would expect. And then another person came along, and then another person, and then another person. And so the latter one said to the first one, "What is this story about? Am I on drugs? Because I'm not following you." You see how that's funny?
It's almost like porn for SJWs.
Moral of the story, R.I.P. Vern Troyer. No, monsieur.
It's much funnier if I say, so my Peruvian whore friend walked in, and she walked in with a baby, but she was high, so she walked in with the wrong baby. But this baby was black and had a huge member. That's a much more interesting story and funny, because the words black and Peruvian and wrong child, and you have to say words like child and woman and man, And then a law enforcement person came along, and the law enforcement person unzipped that person's clothing. It's a lot funnier to say the cop whipped it out.
There you go.
There you go. It's called language, people. It's called economy of words. So it's like, and I tell a story. It's like, do Bohemian Rhapsody, SJW. Is this the real experience? Is one experience just a non-experience? Open someone's eyes. Someone look up to the skies or down or wherever you want and see or not see. If you can't see, I'm sorry. I'm not, judging you. If you can't see, I'm sorry to offend you. We're all just poor people. None of us need sympathy because we or you or anyone or any gender are all easy come or go or easy go or come. Anyway, the wind blows, and that's not about homosexuality.
No.
Doesn't really matter to me. I can't say me, to people in particular. To people in particular. Mama, father, uncle, son, nephew, it would be a 19-minute song.
Listen to this.
Well,
Parents, I've just killed a person, put a gun in that person's head, pulled someone's trigger, now that person is dead. Gender, unapparent, parent, life had just begun, but life, doesn't actually start.
When does actually life begin?
Exactly.
That's the question.
And now someone has gone and thrown it all away if it actually existed.
If it did.
Mama, parent, indiscriminate parent,
Woo-hoo.
Could be man or woman, woohoo. It's not a slam against the Apache language, which means nation, and woohoo. It didn't mean to make you cry by you. I mean you or you, Z or Zay or Zay.
Yeah.
Sometimes wish I'd never been born. Not that I was born at all.
Yeah.
Scaramouche. Sorry to the Italians. I'm sorry.
No,
Scaramouche. Do you see the fandango? I'm sorry to the Mexicans for that one. I see a man. It could be a woman. Could be transgender. Could be fluid. We're never gonna finish the Queen song, people.
Yeah. Well,
and God bless Freddie Mercury. Gay man from Iran, who they will never acknowledge was
That's
gay.
a movie right there.
Never acknowledge he was gay at all. It's like there are no gay people in Iran. Anyway, Steve.
Oh, I was going to say, I support, you can be whatever gender or non-gender you want to be, but, biology is involved here. Like, our last show, there was a person who apparently has decided they're not the gender that they were born as, and I was introduced to this person, and biologically I see a dude, sorry. There's a part of my brain, the lizard in my brainstem, that when it sees you is going to go, that's a dude, and I'm going to react a certain way, regardless of what you've decided your preferred gender is. I'm not discriminating against you, but that's the reality of biology.
Before primates could speak, we didn't have time for a powwow and go, so what do you feel like today?
Wow,
I feel like mounting you. What do you think? I think today would be okay.
I do not remember that person being at our show.
Was this one covered in hair?
He left.
He left.
Or
oh,
she left her.
She left.
Yeah.
He left.
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I didn't even meet.
You talked to this person?
Himmer.
I don't even remember this.
I was introduced to, we'll say her.
Well, someone got offended at our show and they left. I find that really hard. Are you sure it's the right shit?
I can't believe that whatsoever. That's so unbelievable.
Definitely not after my act.
No.
But I was introduced to her, but at that moment, she looked like a he, so I shook his hand like I would a guy or whatever, and then he stayed for.
Well, this is when they get angry if you don't give the reach around.
We're very proud of the fact that we are an equal opportunity offender, and that all sorts of people have walked out of our shows.
Whatever you're
gay, straight, trans,
anti-Semitic,
women, anti-Semitic. They have all walked out of our shows, all of them.
Whatever your lesbian fetish is, we accept you freaks. We accept
bring us your freaks.
Half the time when our audience walks out of our shows, they end up fighting each other in the parking lot.
That's right.
Well, usually, when people walk out of our shows, they're all addicts, so they go out to smoke. So that's when people walk out.
Yeah, we've had a lot of nicotine addicts walk out of our shows as well.
Yeah,
it's been disgusting.
So I wasn't even aware of this. Was this someone related to an Arabic guy covered in hair?
Yeah.
Oh, that really?
Yes.
So I didn't realize that identification looked like a guy to me, but
yeah. But I remember that this person, this open micer,
that person never smiled whatsoever.
This open micer gave a female's name on the guest list as the +1.
Interesting.
Well,
Carol. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, sorry. The Arab guy introduced him with a male name, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the conversation, said, "But now he's going by this female name." And then the guy showed up, or the person showed up, and looked like a guy to me.
I'm sorry, if you're that fluid as a gender, bring a straw, okay? Seriously, because we don't know.
I mean, like I'm not opposed. I'm like Jim Norton. I feel the same way Jim Norton does about lady boys and the transsexuals.
Well, they're beautiful sometimes.
They're beautiful.
Sometimes it's confusing. Sometimes it's confusing.
If a woman looks like a woman, if a man, let's say, if a guy becomes a woman and looks like a woman, you're like, yeah, hey, she.
Well, it's like
but if a guy looks like a guy and says, I'm a she, you're confused.
Yeah.
You're confused.
Well, it's like Bruce Jenner, you're Caitlyn now. Give back your Olympic awards because you won as a man.
Oh.
Okay. You introduce yourself and now you're something different. It's like,
to me, that's being a prima donna.
Well, if I meet someone and they came in and they were a woman and they paid and now you're a man, I'm sorry, that's one more ticket. I'm sorry.
It's shocking. It's shocking that Tufi would show up with a prima donna because it's so completely.
Because it's so redundant.
It's so unlike him.
It's so redundant. Why would you bring? It's like a Messiah. The Messiah came and he brought another Messiah. Mozart, the genius, came and he brought Beethoven.
Ever show up with a prima donna?
Mozart. Why would Mozart come along with another genius? And then we end with a gong, but we don't want to misappropriate the Chinese culture, so we'll end with a thong.
Oh yeah, I met a guy recently in a bar who was all about cultural appropriation. I was like, yeah, I don't think it exists, and he was like, oh yes, it exists. And his basic argument was that there's two kinds. There's homage, which is fine.
Yeah.
If it's an homage,
it's a tribute.
And then there is cliche. If it's a cliche, then it's cultural appropriation. And I was like, well, that's kind of like what art is, right? Like you look at something, if it's cliche, it's bad art or bad culture or whatever. If it's something that's new and interesting and takes into account that culture, it's an homage. So why do we even need the term cultural appropriation? We don't need it.
Well, Steve Howard did in one of his bits, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. And he said, basically, to recap it, he said, what about the first tribe that invented fire? Is nobody else allowed to use fire? What about the first people that found you could eat animals? No, that's just our tribe. You people die.
Steam engine, that was
rock.
British.
Hey, rock, that's us. You can't. Stone Age. That's totally us.
British?
Stone Age, not you.
First animals that breathed oxygen.
Right.
Nope. Not the rest of you. No.
British invented the steam engine. We have no right to that. That's their culture. We have to eliminate steam engines around the world.
The first shellfish that made it onto land. I'm sorry. Yeah. I call dibs. I call dibs on land. My species, only my family get land. No monkeys coming from our line. Only shellfish. I call dibs. The Brian Regan bit where he had lived in a large Catholic family, and whenever they came home, they had to call. I call the bathroom. I call the chair. I call the refrigerator. So whoever gets dibs on the refrigerator, first person, whoever calls it, they get it. So he goes to school and he sees a chair he likes, and he runs up and he goes, "I call this chair. I call this chair. I call this chair." The teacher thinks he's special ed. She walks up and she goes, "Hi, Brian. Yes, we all call this chair. Yes, we all call this chair. Just calm down. It's mine. Yes, Brian, it's yours. Just calm down until I find the right class for you."
Yeah.
This has been Mark Bailey with Steve Howard and Mike Miller. Thanks for listening, guys. AskPortJapan@yahoo.com. Anything you don't like, please address it to Mike Miller. He loves
Bailey. Mark Bailey.
Mike Bailey.
Address it to Mark
Bailey.
Miller. Mark Bailey. Bailey.
Steve Miller.
My wife's phone number is
Steve Miller, abracadabra. I want to reach out and grab you. #, not me.